I remember we had some mic issues last time, didn't we?
Good morning, afternoon.
The good thing is we only had 3 people here, so this is rather quickly.
And it was a quick agenda item too, so that was good. Well, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
A motion by Linda Anderson, and a second by Steve Riley. Thank you very much. Okay, item B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on request to paint 214 North Rusk.
See if Don is gonna.
I'll introduce it and you can speak to it. No, I will.
Hi, Donna.
Hey, Donna.
So sorry that I was not here. I got caught up on a phone call related to historic preservation, so we'll have that conversation later. But clicker, okay, you can click. The applicant would like to paint the building. Some was started before approval was requested, and so he's a new property owner in town. And so he would like to, he's addressed some of the issues that you had asked for, and I'll let him verbally tell you what he found out. And so Mr. Ashton is with us today. He's got the paint colors there that you can see that he's chosen. And then you'll need...
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Is there a pointer for this board, for this highlighter? There's no pointer?
If you talk to it, she'll put an arrow up there so we can see it.
All right, well,
And please,
Dr. Ivan Charles Ashton, 14791, Buckingham Court, Dallas, Texas, 75254.
thank you, Mr. Ashton.
Well, initially, I was given by fax, or email, rather, the palette of the colors that are approved. And it was a copy of a copy of a copy. Okay? And the brand paint. Oh, sure. And the brand paint that you use is called Valspar. And I was told you didn't care if it came from Kmart or what company. Well, I went and researched paint, and I found that Sherwin-Williams makes a special paint. Okay? And I have the safety sheets on it. Okay? I don't know if they were presented here or not, but here's the sheets on it. And what it does is when it rains and you get mud on a building, it washes it off and it keeps it new. And Sherwin-Williams actually warranties it if it's done properly. Okay? And so knowing that, I hired a painter who, here's his resume. I'm sorry, I'm a pacer. He has done Tom Hicks's home. He has done the Deadman's home. He's gone to Italy and got trained. He's been an expert witness because I want this done properly. Where do I submit?
They have that, I think.
We have it.
We have a copy. Yeah. Let's see, I have a copy of his resume right here. Yes.
We have it,
We
sir.
have that, we have that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So, what I'm looking for in my papers is the print copy right here that I was given. I asked if there was an original. Nope. All we have best of my ability, I matched white to white. I matched gray to gray with the quality paint. I went to Lowe's, who carries this paint. They couldn't even find the colors on here that you have approved. But here's, I don't know if you have these. Okay. And this is the closest I could get the colors. Okay. These are the two colors that I picked. Okay. I don't know what you want me to do to satisfy you. Okay. I'm willing to let you all pick a color and I'll repaint it. But I just need your approval to go ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Ashton, you might, you asked your painter about the paint removal, and he said it would be harmful to the building, so you might,
That
share
letter's here too, I thought you had that.
They have it.
We have
Yeah.
a letter.
Yeah. Yes, that's what Mr., but I don't understand why that would be harmful, because there are other buildings downtown that's been painted. And I'm sure I could go on historical sites and find additional buildings that have been painted.
I don't know what your point is.
Oh, well, the point is, there's other buildings. and
There's lots of buildings that have been painted.
Yeah, and so I don't know why the paint needs to be, I could just do a proper shade.
Well, our ordinance says that you can't paint unpainted brick, and so you have to come before historic
Well,
preservation to
I
paint
was
it.
not aware about that, and when I came down here and looked at the building, if you walk down, up and down Main Street,
Sir, have you
There's
or
no
your
issue.
people looked at the website there that talks about the palette and or talks about the rationale and the benefits you get from a tax incentive if you adhere to the historic preservation guidelines?
was never told that. I would love to get tax incentive. What would you like me to do? I'm asking you.
Sure. We're just gonna look at the colors. So we're excited that you're here, that you've bought a building in downtown Denison. We're a historic district. All of our buildings are from different time periods. Some are from 1872, further down east, others down west are a little bit newer. And we're just here to look and evaluate the paint color, and we want to work with you.
Right,
So,
this one here is from
yeah.
1954.
okay.
So these are the two that are your choices, right? It's the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Ashton, just a couple of questions. I'm the newest board member with the least amount of
Sure.
experience here. So there's some historical things here that I'm not aware of. So apparently you bought this building sometime
Are these on the palette?
in the back, in the past, and we're going to work on fixing it up. How long have you had that building?
September, October.
Okay. And then did you had an application in to get it painted, or were you not completely?
I wasn't aware of that. Nobody from the city of Denison greeted me or welcomed me.
I'm sorry about that.
I've only been, cited. I never was greeted. I never was welcomed.
Well, okay. So obviously now there's a learning curve on two ends. Is that, you kind of agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it is pretty common that anytime you do repairs or to almost everything, you gotta have a permit of some sort. Even on your house down on Buckingham, which is right on Spring Valley in the tollway somewhere down there.
Yeah.
Oh, if I can kind of get my geography right. So you couldn't build a fence across your driveway without having a permit. Is that correct?
There's HOA. I would have to go to the HOA first, but there's no permit needed for painting.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, no matter what, there's always someone overlooking your shoulder somewhere. And when you're have a business building, there's always those more things. Okay. And like when I introduced myself, I am the newest member and I have the most to learn. Is basically what I'm saying. But what I do know is that nobody does anything in the downtown business area without having to inform somebody somewhere. And now what's been done has been done, and so we have to kind of start when we're at and move forward. Okay.
I agree. I'm willing to accept that I wasn't welcomed here. I'm willing to accept that I didn't know that you needed a permit to paint. I could understand if I was doing plumbing, electrical, construction, a fence. That's all we require is a permit. But usually in most municipalities, and I will check on the city of Addison, if I need a permit to be painted, okay? Because Mr. Shepherd just painted the exterior of my house, and city services, as you know, in Addison is outstanding, okay? And nobody required a permit for painting.
I understand. We're also in a historic district. I'm not sure if you've ever worked or lived in a historic
Yes,
district.
I own about 6 buildings in downtown McKinney, and they don't require permits for painting. If you change the facade, yes.
Mr. Ashton,
That's
I was
not
a county
true.
commissioner for 35 years.
Fantastic.
I probably have as much institutional knowledge about the city of McKinney as
That's
anybody here.
fantastic, but you
And
know,
that
I
takes
just
it
want to get this, I'm not trying to be advantageous here, and it moved into that direction, okay? I just want to get this building painted. I would like you all to pick a color. Pick a color. The more avant-garde, fantastic.
Mr. Ashton, one, it needs to be perfectly clear that the fact that you see other buildings in the historic district that are painted is an unrelated issue to yours. Those buildings were painted, and because they were painted, they could be painted again. Buildings in the historic district that are not painted cannot be painted. And would you like to reiterate for the record, you said you were not welcome, you were cited. And you were cited for what?
Painting, but let me ask you a question. What year did this become historical so I could research that?
Research what, Mr. Ashton?
What year did Denison become historical?
Was that 1989?
It was in the 80s.
Okay.
The 80s.
I don't understand why that's relevant. I do understand that what you're trying to do is make a situation correct. Unfortunately, as a board that's responsible for the integrity of our historic district, we're placed in a situation of being asked to approve paint colors when, in fact, the process was not followed. There was not permission to paint the building. And whether or not the permission would have been given is somewhat relevant because now the building is painted. The product will probably, in fact, be acceptable and aesthetically pleasing. However, the process was not followed. And I would like, please, for you to understand that process is very important in our district. And there are ordinances that relate to that process. And you seem in a way to have scorn for that.
I'll accept that.
Dr. Ashton, we own 312 and 314. Do you remember meeting me outside?
Yes, I
when
do.
we were
You're
working-
Miss Christensen.
Kirsten. Sorry.
Christian.
Yes. When you found the building and bought the building and you were going to take a stroll up and down to see what color you wanted to choose, and then you came back and showed me pictures of the building you had purchased and said you had picked your colors, do you remember our conversation?
Yes,
about
I
the-
do.
About
Part
the
of
historical,
it, part of it.
the historical board and having to fill out an application?
I
And
don't remember.
you asked for a general contractor, and I said Mr. James Green and sent you his information, which would have been well aware. He would have been aware of the policies and of the historic district.
Well, I apologize. I don't remember that portion.
Okay.
Can you bring up our website that has all of this information, so you might have it for your background, to include the design guide, to include the ordinances that talked about the historic preservation, just so we can at least give you the URL that you could research it at? And what I would really love to see is if we have the palette, and we would let you choose from the palette.
Well, I can't find those paints. I
You
can't
mean-
find those.
You
I
mean the
went to
manufacturing?
Lowe's.
You mean
I
like,
went to
I'm
Lowe's,
sure
who they
Donna's probably
recommended,
already
and
had
I
that.
can't find those paint colors.
Donna, why don't you speak, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chakowski, I looked and the link is broken for the paint palette on our website. I would think, just being familiar with our paint palette, that these two colors would be on there, you know, kind of a whitish and a dark toward a black. So I think that those are on the palette, but I can't confirm that now.
it's up, looks like it's been restored.
Okay, so she's able to find it, I just couldn't get it on my phone.
Yeah, it's not on those, but it's on the small screen.
Hey, Dr. Ashton, do you have any future plans for other modifications or either aesthetically?
I'm not sure yet, because we also recently purchased Texoma and Highway 82.
Okay.
So I'm not sure we have that project going on too.
So, well, let me be the first to welcome you to those new projects.
Thank you.
However, just in the future, obviously now we know that there's a process that we have to kind of work with. And,
Yeah, like if you decide to put shutters or canopies or a sign or anything, signage, that would need to come before the board.
I understand that, because that would be that's the same in all cities. I understand that. Painting was out of my wheelhouse for
So-
knowledge.
Do you have a card or something that we might copy down this URL and send it to you so you can have?
That I could want?
it's on,
What I'm saying is so that he's
Yeah,
got an
sure,
original copy rather than a copy of a copy of a copy. He
Okay.
can pull it straight from his
yeah,
computer
his
screen.
email address is on the application.
There you go. Could we send
We asked
this link
staff
to him?
to make sure he has the most freshest copy. Perhaps we'll invest 45 cents in a stamp so we can't possibly,
That would be great. I'd love you to mail it to me.
I'll be happy to.
So then, in working with you and moving forward, I'm not sure, do these colors, are they on the palette?
We found some that were close to it, so, you know,
And with-
And you don't care about the quality.
Actually, we do.
We do.
Yeah, in preparation, yes.
And if a Sherman-Williams paint is different than a Lowe's paint, if the Lowe's paint color matches the Sherman-Williams, great. If you'd like to spend that much extra money for the higher quality paint, then wonderful.
And I appreciate that knowledge
Yeah.
because I would like to check into that paint for our buildings. So, yeah.
But
I'm a
for,
lazy guy, so I do things, one time the right way.
excellent.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Gates said, a quote like that.
So then what I think I heard, Donna, is these colors that are on already are a close color match to the historic palette. So then,
so
in,
you might, and I'm not sure of the intent, but is this for the base color and this is for the trim?
That's for the trim and also the wooden area that's green.
could you bring back up the picture of this?
There's a green,
The door and the shutter.
So here, Dr. Ashton, so we have here, we did have there. So if you talk to her, she can put the arrow on what we were talking about.
all right, so the shutters have been removed, but if you go to the side of the building. Pardon me? Oh, okay. We're here.
Okay? So the base color is the iron ore or the Greek villa?
No, this is gonna be white.
Okay, so the Greek villa.
The white color over there.
Yeah, the only thing that's going iron ore is basically the accent and the trim, and possibly in the front, there's like a flower bed with 2 bricks.
So right here,
Yeah, I moved, yeah,
that'll be the iron ore.
correct,
And the door, maybe?
correct.
Shutters going back?
Pardon me?
Are the shutters going back?
No, they were just plastic
Just a question.
shutters.
Okay.
Well, I'm certainly not an advocate to strip the paint in any form.
Not from what I take as fact, his experts.
Right.
The one wall would actually be excellent for mural. I am out there all the time. I'm doing, like Christian, I do my own labor a lot of times. I find it relaxing. So I'm out there today cleaning.
As an expert on murals, having done 2 or been involved in 2, there are rules on murals also.
Right, right. I would go to the art committee for that, okay? But
I would commend you, Ms. Dow, because she has a very nice logic tree to help you to
right, because
navigate
the one side where the mailboxes are get a lot of traffic, more than I ever realized that people use mailboxes for. And I think that would be a great wall for maybe some type of postal, if there's some famous postal or airmail celebrity of Denison, the way you have the pilots and that. I'm all for historical.
Great.
I'm not against historical, and I just didn't, think that paint needed to be. I've never been in an area where paint needed to be permitted, and so.
Super. I'm glad we now know, and I'm glad we've educated, and I don't have any more questions, Madam
Okay.
Chairman.
All right, well, are we ready to make a motion then? Do I have a
Yes.
motion?
I do. I would like to move to approve the request to paint 214 North Rusk in the colors that have been situated, the green, villa, and iron ore.
A second.
Okay, so I have a motion, all in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion by Kurt Krakowski and a second by Ms. Solomon.
If I could say one other thing, I support historical. I grow on you. I respect what you do down here. It was enlightening that I heard that from November to January, do ice skating. My son had a Division II hockey scholarship at Penn State. I could speak for him. He would be more than happy to come down here on Saturdays and put on a hockey clinic and get the kids involved. We're more than happy. I'm a big believer in giving back. If you need me to volunteer for anything, I'm there.
Appreciate
I'm
that.
sure the chamber would be glad to talk to you.
Well, not only the chamber, but Donna, because Donna's in charge of the ice rink, so
You know,
I would speak with Ms.
And
Dow.
I apologize we got off like this, okay?
Well, we look
The
for-
city of McKinney Codes Department is actually my tenant, and they're just as hard on me as everybody else.
Well, good. We hope to do it agreeably in the future.
Thank you. Good meeting you.
Thank you very
Look
much.
forward to seeing the finished product, Dr. Ashton.
I look forward to it too. I think it's a real interesting building with the 5 parking spots in it, especially with the parking needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, staff updates. Do we have any staff updates, Donna?
Did you call for the vote?
Yeah,
We
we
did.
Yes, we did.
We did.
I just want to make sure, thank you.
And it was unanimous.
It's nice meeting you. I'm sorry, what?
It was unanimous.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that vote got in there. I apologize for cutting it close today. I was on a call with a resident, someone who had just bought a building on Gandy Street, and they are on the side of the street that requires historic preservation approval. And so, of course, I'm not as familiar with that as I am on the historic buildings, and I was trying to,
Research what you're talking
yeah, and so I had to end the call, and I felt very bad about that, but I had to, and so I told him that I would call him back, but I thought maybe we could have some conversation on that. But before that, I have a short presentation to give you that I gave council last night. So the assistant city manager and I have been going over the historic preservation ordinance. And we asked you several months, those that were on it at that time, if you had any comments on it. And I know that Ms. Anderson had several. And so we've taken that, we've asked our consultant for comments, and that was quite a long list, and we've taken those. And I had some, and of course there were some questions. So we finally got through that list like yesterday, and are ready to take another look at it, and then bring it back to council for the the second meeting in April. So, trying to think of everything to say here, but let me just get started on the list and tell you the changes that we have made. I know there have been some, because every case that comes before us, we learn something new that maybe wasn't included in it. And so there will be even more changes. I'll just start with what we've done, because as you can tell, it's sometimes difficult for everybody to know that they're in the historic district. We've updated our website. After that phone conversation I just got off of, we can use more. I know there's some historic preservation is on some other areas of our website, and we need to take those down because it just reiterates, but in less information, what is on the Main Street page. So we will do that. We put a video by the mayor and 2 property owners that is now on our website. We have put deed restrictions on the property. So that was always a thing, but it was never done back in the early days, and we didn't know that. And so when we started asking questions, if that was not something we could do, well, it was already allowed and stated that we should do, but it hadn't been done. So that has been recorded. We looked at stricter enforcement. Mr. Lay has been assisting with that. And then utilizing our historic preservation consultant. I think that's one thing that we've done to strengthen the process. So we have been utilizing them on an as-needed basis. We plan to update design guidelines. So as Renee and I went along with the ordinance, the companion piece of that is the guidelines. And so I went ahead, we knew we were going to do it, I went ahead and asked the consultant to begin work on that. Because there were things like solar panels that back 10, 12 years ago was an issue. We didn't know to watch out for them.
Or spools.
Yeah.
Spools, I love the spools. Hope we have more of those.
Yeah.
Rooftop spools.
Yeah.
Heated with solar panels.
So we have new things, and we need to accommodate the guidelines so they will guide us in that. So we've been rewriting the ordinance. Water Department is providing us information on property owner and tenant changes. So I know that, when you were with the department, we tried to get those. I received one today, and so they're sending them on a regular basis so we can look and try to catch people before they start work. So we're adding different layers into the process that surely one of them will catch most of the tenants and owners. And then the permitting process. So we're looking at the permitting process on the building side to make sure that it's solid as well. But then okay, so what we've done with the ordinance, we provided an expiration date. we didn't have an expiration date before. And so we've proposed that it be in line with the building permit, which is 6 months. That seems to make sense. If you haven't done that, then you need to come back and ask for that. I think we've seen some cases that, the answer might not be the same. We certainly have different members on the board, and so I don't think it's okay not to have an expiration date. We've tightened our wording so it, if there's any discrepancies in it, we've changed that. Define and outline how to proceed with emergency repairs. So, there's been some done on the weekend, and maybe they had to, but we're going to give them procedures to follow if that is the case. They still have to come before us. And if we need to make allowances for that emergency, maybe they can come back, or maybe if it's something that I can approve on site. And then add definition of the HPB and, things like that. Unpainted brick should remain unpainted. It's also going to change that to masonry. So, that's, I think it will say brick or masonry. But anyway, that's going to be masonry. And then looking at inspection of the work before the CO can be issued. So signing off on what's actually done. And to my knowledge, that's not something that we've ever done. Of course, the Historic Preservation Board is keeping an eye on it and can see, as I am, but to actually give an inspection, I don't think that's been done. And then define who enforces. So there's just some things like that we will do. Is that can you pull up that design guidelines again, or did you get out of it? Yeah, there you go. Okay. So maybe just just scroll down just a little bit so we can see what's on that. Go back up just a little bit so we can, right there. Okay. So the question that I wasn't sure of to answer the gentleman on the phone, he's the one that came recently about the windows that Charlie Scherer presented for him. So, of course, he's concerned, are we going to scrutinize the windows over there? And all I know to do is to direct him to this, and historic guidelines are historic guidelines. He had actually read this, though, so it's not like he's totally oblivious to it. But anyway, it talks about maintenance and alterations. I know that the building he's asking about is a home, and it has siding that's been put on it and storm windows. And so, that's already been done. And so that would be another thing that maybe we need a place for residences that are not commercial buildings in this guidelines.
Or you break it down, contributing and non-contributing.
We had
I don't
that.
think that matters necessarily. I mean, it does, but I think you're doing a great job with the guidelines. Is what I'm trying to
Excellent.
say. I think it's great.
And Donna, we did have that little house that's by the barbecue place that in
Yes.
fact was a house, and
Yes.
it used to be a house and then it became a business. But a house that's going to stay a house, clearly we need to talk about that as well. But this is
Right.
excellent,
It's very
Right.
good.
excellent.
Who did you work with on this?
On this, the design guidelines, we just did it several years ago out of my office. I had some Austin College interns that helped me. And we took actual solid preservation guidelines and put them together. So we didn't create it. There were some trigger points that I knew to watch out for.
Sure.
And so I made sure those were included. But I think I've got it in my office, but I think it was like McKinney's that we used in some more prominent cities. Yeah,
Can we ask questions?
yeah.
Okay, because I've got some questions. So the expiration date for the COA, is that they have to have it started within that 6-month time period, or they can start it, they don't have to be done with it in 6 months? Or,
So I think that it's renewable, and I'm not sure, that may be one of those that we've got to go back and, check against all the other pieces of it.
yeah, because I just, keep thinking back with our buildings.
Right.
Because, one of them took us 1.5 years, so we would not have fallen in that 6-month guideline.
Right,
But
right.
we never reapplied. I mean, we were continuing work, so I
Right.
feel like as long as you're seeing obvious work, continuation
Right.
progress, that,
Yeah, but if you tie it to the permit,
yeah,
then it makes it easy.
yeah. it's
Yeah.
relatively the same.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we would want to clarify that. It would be renewable, but, like in that case, I feel like at about 5 months, you would come back before this and say, we just need that
I
extended.
need an extension, okay.
That'd be fairly
Um,
easy.
Okay, that answered that. So, okay, on the 5, the unpainted brick should remain unpainted? Because I know this has been an issue in the past, and with me, because I was a nay on a brick that was not previously painted, that we allowed painting, and I was told that it was suggested. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's recommended, but it's just suggested to not be painted. It wasn't a cut and dry, no, you can't paint. So are we saying at this point that unpainted brick cannot be painted, or just should not?
Well, the intent was that it never be painted. That is in the Secretary of Interior standards. And so I would say that we follow that. We are proposing to tighten our language to express that.
Okay,
But the Secretary of Interior standards are a no. And so I would say that we should be a no as well.
should be a no as well. Okay, the historic color palette, Dr. Ashton, I mean, he's still, like everyone else, makes a really good point on, it's kind of all over the map as far as like a copy of a copy of a copy. What's happening with the historic color palette now? I mean, should we just scratch the color palette and just let people bring us colors and we just approve it? I mean, like, I don't know where to go with the color palette at this point, because it's.
Well, it is online. If you print that, then it can not come out as the
Right.
same color. So I think it is just a guideline. If they would propose another color, that is totally acceptable. And so I try to express that to everyone, that they can choose any other color, that those are a guideline, and it doesn't mean that those will get approved.
Okay.
So the wording will be important then, is if you choose it from the historic palette, it's like automatically approved. Should you choose another color, it will then have to come before the board.
Well,
Is that what I'm hearing?
that's not the way we did it. So I don't know, 1.5 years back, I don't know how long it's been, but they had us redo the color palette, and it's only a suggestion of colors you might choose from. It doesn't mean they're going to get approved. And an example of that would be if you've got a white building and a white building and a white building and a white building, you want some variety. And so I've heard this board appropriately so suggest that they vary from the neighbor, that that's not appropriate for that building. So just because they choose that doesn't mean that it's appropriate for that building in that case. I would say if you want to quantify it, it gives you a good chance of being approved.
I miscommunicated, and I apologize for that. But let's just say in that case, we said, no, we got 3 white houses in a row. Please choose another color. And they come back and say, okay, I choose I choose iron ore.
Right.
Does that mean that it'll probably be approved already? It's already pre-approved? iron ore is already pre-approved, as long as it's within the contextual look of the neighborhood?
I think I would have to match that to the color chart and see if it is, and then state that on the staff report.
That makes it pretty tough for a homeowner or a business owner.
Right. So as we did a while ago, we looked at that, compared it. It looks close to a white, and it looks close to a black. And so that you could say it's on our color chart. To further explain the color chart, when we redid this color process, we took Lowe's Valspar paints, which the way that got to be is years ago, Lowe's paid a sponsorship fee to the National Register, and they let them be the historic
The standard.
colors. So Sherwin-Williams had their historic colors, but that wasn't our historic colors, and they didn't always match. So they quit that sponsorship, and we continued to use the same colors. So we took the colors that we were using, converted those to Pantone colors, and put them on a color chart. It was felt that we should drop some of those, and so we did. It was also felt that some of them should only be trim colors, and so you'll see that on the color chart. So we've got that guideline for people to choose from. It's less than what we had before, but it's still plenty. Now, I say it's a good thing to give them a guideline, but that's all it is a guideline, because you may feel that it's not appropriate for the building, and so they can't use it. But that's just the way that it was, that we were instructed to do it when we made the change.
Donna, when all of this has been discussed multiple times, the very thing about what you see on your screen, what's that screen, what's on a piece of paper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera,
Right.
that in fact people would bring to us the paint on the material.
Right.
And as I can remember, even though we've been pretty emphatic about that, it's only happened like 3 times, but that really gets it down to
Right.
we're looking at something that's real. And a quart of paint is worth the investment for us not to have a hideous building for a really long time.
Right. So
Exactly. And
we can be more stringent on that. It's just been so much going on. That's one thing that slipped through the cracks. But that's a good point, because in the ordinance we went over that specifically, and we want to keep that in there. So they bring you the material and the paint on that material.
And that also takes the variable out of who is the manufacturer, what is the paint number.
Yeah,
That
because we
becomes
don't
irrelevant
care.
Because we can look at it. And it seems to me that would eliminate a lot of steps that might not, as you say, use the palette as guidelines.
Right.
And then say, bring us some real paint.
Yeah, what happened is Valspar has called it different things, and probably like Walmart changes their floor
Exactly.
layout all the time.
Exactly.
They change their colors all the time, and so they've got those names that if you Google it hard enough, you can find what it is. But yeah, we need to go by the color and have them bring a sample, and we don't care where they buy it. Of course, we prefer that they buy it locally, and that would mean, Sherwin-Williams is a good choice, but we can't tell them where to buy their paint.
Yeah, I would just say that even this morning, going back from last night's discussion, reading the ordinance and the design guideline, that's not how I took it. So the wording that we use, I think would be very important, so we don't have frustration on everybody's side.
Right. we definitely want to cut that frustration level down as much as possible for the user. The design guidelines were written back in 2012, and they haven't been touched. And so the recent changes to the historic preservation ordinance could have possibly, they changed a lot of things, so that could have possibly, everything doesn't agree with everything else in the change, especially with the design guidelines.
And then
And
the
that's-
website,
Yeah.
even as much as Madison and goodness gracious, I forgot her name already. Who was your
Sarah.
partner? Sarah. Even as much great work that they even recently have done, there are parts that in the website are not connected, whether it be the city side or whether it be the preservation board side.
Right.
But regardless.
To
And-
your- I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to point out that if you see specifics, please let me know, because I'm trying to even tighten it up as we go. And I've looked over it, and I've, asked Madison to make changes, and she has. And then I see another one as I was looking over it with this gentleman a while ago. So to make it more clear, but also the map for the historic district, it's on there, but we're trying to make it interactive, like where you could type in your address and get in there.
Really,
And also, we're trying to make it where it's historic preservation district is on, so it's a button you click or, to make it go on. We're trying to make that go on at all times. So we're waiting on, another department to get to that, but that's been requested. It's just,
The person that you're working with on Gandy, did you say that they were on Main Street and they had bought?
Yes.
So they were already well aware of,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
506,
why,
510.
that's why they call me.
yeah.
Now, possibly some work has been going on in the neighborhood that hasn't gone through historic preservation.
One more thing on the color palette, to your point about they've changed numbers and changed formula, and I remember I had brought this to the board's attention back when we were
Right.
trying to find colors, and there is a frustration level because I went in with colors and Lowe's had completely changed their
Palette.
information. And I even gave him like the letters, the numbers, and he went in and some of them were coming up and some of them were obsolete. So for people to still be able to see those colors as an option when they go to the site and then they go to the store, there is a frustration level when you're trying to pick those colors and they're not there. And then now you gotta try to find something that's similar or close and.
Well, I like the idea of the
Yeah.
color and the material, and I would assume that would be before the certificate of appropriateness is issued.
Yes.
I like that idea a lot.
I guess in that case, it would be instead of going to the color chart and choosing a color, you really just go to the paint store,
Yes.
find what you like, and
It's
then
gonna
bring
be a
it to
guideline
us.
anyways.
Well,
Yeah.
But the palette is still good to say it's
Yeah.
about the
Sure,
shade.
sure.
A guideline, right.
Yeah, sure.
If you have a color chart without the numbers and they just, this is the colors we can pick from, then they go, as opposed to trying to find that particular paint number or what the formula is. You just give them a chart.
Yeah, right.
And then
That way you can go.
bring the
Match this with
example and the
anything.
material,
Right,
and then get your
exactly.
I don't
certificate.
know if you've got a Pittsburgh paint store, but that's similar.
Yeah, we,
And
I don't
Thomas,
know of one.
even a smaller number, because a whole page of some sort of robin egg blue is really superfluous. A color that's something like robin's egg blue, and then the person says, okay, somewhere in this family, they go and look at the paint chips, strips just like we would, which is what they're gonna be doing anyway.
Right.
So why show them 25 light blues when you say something that looks like this?
Right.
And without a specific paint company or number. And maybe even Pantone, that's sort of universal, but we like stony grays, right? Something like this. And give them, instead of 500, give them 100.
Or take a picture of Kurt's tie and say, hey, you want one?
There you go, just like this, just like this.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? If it's a
It does.
guideline.
It's just that,
Huh?
It's a great tie.
I do have a couple questions there
Melanie
too.
shirt, that would be good.
Yeah, that would be pretty
What
bold.
is this board's
That's
role
bold.
in this going forward and associated to this committee that you talked about last night?
Oh, okay. So, so far, it has just been staff putting together everybody's comments. And so, I would think a good path forward is for us to possibly send out the edited version. It won't be the final version yet because we'll make other changes. We can do that and send it out to everyone for comments, or you could choose a member to also be on the panel. We're going to have, I've not asked them yet because I wanted to wait till today. We're going to have myself, Mary Tate, who's the Developmental Services Department. She's over that. We're going to have Chris Wallentine for legal, and then, I think Robert Lay for enforcement. So we're going to have those on the committee that re-reviews what we've come up with.
I would recommend that someone from the HPP be on this committee, to, if nothing else, to be able to help bring it back here, but also to give this perspective.
Yeah.
I know will do that.
You're gonna do
You are
a
going
lot
to
of
be
good
busy,
job.
busy.
I think you'll be great. You'll be great. It's unanimous. Thank you for serving.
When you make suggestions,
You
you
pick
get
it up
them
and
in.
get it.
Was it Millard Fillmore said, if nominated, I won't run, elected, I won't serve?
For a military guy. And I thought you knew better than volunteer.
Seriously.
The other things that I would come back with, okay, fine. The other thing I would notice is there are some very specific things, like specifically, I'm now talking about the ordinances under the historic preservation section 30. It is very specific. All work performed pursuant to the certificate of appropriateness issued on this chapter will conform to any requirements included in this, and is the duty of the building inspector department to inspect such work to ensure compliance. That's pretty perspective. I mean, pretty specific. And I don't know if we are tied with them for that.
Well, Robert Lay went over there and told that man to quit painting it, and he said, how much does it cost to keep painting? $500 a day, I'll just keep on painting. But Robert has tried to help us out with
Yes,
that,
he has.
and aggressively, but the
But you
if the
don't get your
building owner
certificate
just
of
said,
occupancy.
"Eh."
You don't
So
get your CO.
that's what we're facing, and not necessarily in that case, a lot of cases. So we've got developers coming in, and it's easier to pay the $500 and keep going.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that it's up to the judge to set that too. So we can say up to $500, but the judge sets that. So there's not, like, we can't control that like we would like to control that.
Can't throw them in jail if they keep painting. At least not on day one.
We can find them every day.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we'll have to look at, and we're getting serious about it, but we've got to write the ordinance before we do that. We may be able to increase it some, and maybe on some other things. We've talked about a tiered system, and so that's also a possibility.
Just a question about process. So I went to that building prior to coming over today, and I realized you wouldn't be able to strip it off. Say he had turned in an application, and they said, no, it's unpainted brick, and then all of a sudden some graffiti got put on there, and you can't really remove it. So now the building has been painted on, and so you've got to deal with that in some way.
Oops.
The reason I brought that all up is because if you deny somebody, their permit or their certificate of appropriateness, then all of a sudden there is some extraneous painting on there. How do we?
We would probably have to look at some sort of a variance for that and
Yeah.
just work
And
around
for
it.
which they would,
There's gonna be a lot of graffiti.
All of a sudden appear?
yeah, exactly, I know how to get my building painted. I do think we have, even though the $500 a day can be scoffed at, or we had 327 where we were scoffed at for months, the certificate of occupancy could be where it stops, and at the point of certificate of occupancy, at that point you could say, you know what, you defied us for 6 months. And we could have asked for $500 a day. Instead, we're going to ask for $2,000 to be donated to the mural fund or whatever. But the certificate of occupancy is where you could put the hammer down. And I think somebody has to see that somebody had consequences.
Right.
If they don't comply with every board or with everything, then you don't, that needs to be a part of the ordinance or get your CO.
Exactly.
And I don't know how the certificate of occupancy ordinance reads, but, that's probably something, that is your hammer. Hey, don't follow our rules or don't follow our
Yeah.
guidelines, but if you go get your, well, now you can't get a CO because you didn't.
Yeah, that's really hitting your pocketbook for the long term.
Then get your
Can't
contractor
continue.
back out there, okay, you scoffed at 500, that's great, now scoff at this 20,000.
Yeah. And I did want to point out a discussion that we were having a while ago. So Robert Lay is now in the police department instead of the
Code
community
enforcement.
services department as it was before. And so he's changed. His role is still the same.
So now he used to
Different
take a gun.
No.
Sorry.
And so also, there was another role that you mentioned, I can't recall what it was, but that role is still in the Development Services Department. So we definitely have to work with the other departments. The CO would be from that department. And so they have been attending our meeting. Betty had an appointment today that she
And
had
so
to attend.
moving Mr. Lay to police, I was only partially being flippant. He keeps code enforcement as at least part of his responsibility, yes?
That is, as I understand
So
it,
then he
his
does, in
responsibility.
fact, perhaps have a bigger hammer, maybe just the card he hands out. Take this.
Well, I don't want to use the word hammer, no, it's just, change. He's still a code officer, he just reports to the chief of police.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is not, and I've had experience of both when I was a mayor, our police officers were the code officers, it created way more problems.
Really?
For the police, yeah.
Sometimes they didn't remember, hey, am I wearing my police uniform or?
Or my code enforcement.
Highway ticket writing uniform
Right,
or
right.
today. Somebody gets out of line, then all of a sudden the police uniform comes back on, so, but how Denison controls their own, that's their business. And he just has more help now, but still, I was always against having your code people under the law enforcement side. It really needs, it's an administrative side, and those penalties are an administrative penalty.
Versus, yeah. That's a good call.
Separation. Thank you.
I look forward to being a part of this moving forward.
Awesome. Because you're all in now.
For what we're about to receive, may we be thankful. Isn't that the way that goes?
Well, thank you,
Donna,
Donna.
thank you. That's
for the
great
update.
work.
Thank you.
Great work.
Okay, well, there being no further business, it's 12:59 PM, and I call this meeting to an end. Okay.
Huzzah.